What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here of the Bottom Line View, here to give you another NFL video. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the 10 bold predictions that I have for the NFL season in 2017. These are predictions that are out there, that are bold, that might not necessarily happen, but I think are actually pretty logical, and I think could very well happen this season in the NFL. These are the 10 bold predictions for the 2017 NFL season. We're going to start off with some predictions for teams in the NFL. Starting off with one of the teams that is always controversial, the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Dallas Cowboys might actually finish last in the NFC East this season. Before you get mad at me, let me explain myself. So, I did actually pick the Cowboys to finish 7-9 this season in the NFL in 2017 and finish last in the NFC East. The reason being is that I feel the first 6 weeks without Ezekiel Elliott, if that is the case, we still don't know yet, that is really going to hurt their offense. That's going to hurt what they do. Everything that they do on offense works around and runs through their running game, their play action, their ability to run read options with Dak. It keeps pressure off Dak Prescott, and it also keeps pressure off of that offensive line. I think the Cowboys offense will struggle a little bit, but I'm not concerned really about the offense. I'm actually more concerned about the defense. When you look at this defense, there's a lot of missing pieces from last season, which made them a pretty successful unit overall in 2016. They lost a lot of guys in the secondary, and I feel like they placed a bunch of young players that are unproven and aren't necessarily, guys that you would want to rely on coming into a season where you are supposed to be a contending team. The Dallas Cowboys have a bunch of players in the secondary that are young, that are inexperienced, and even the ones that are experienced aren't really that good. So for me, I look at the Cowboys defense. They don't have an elite pass rush. They don't have a very good secondary. Their strongest point of their defense is really their linebacking core, but they've already had a couple injuries in that regard. They've had multiple suspensions to the team. They've had multiple distractions on and off the field with suspensions and the Zeke situation and Jerry Jones and all this stuff that has happened with the Cowboys. And I just feel like the Cowboys are really going to have a down year in 2017. That's why I think they'll finish last in the NFC East. The next bold prediction I have for the 2017 NFL season has to do with the NFC champion Atlanta Falcons. I actually don't think the Atlanta Falcons will win the NFC South in 2017. The reason being is that I feel like the Atlanta Falcons, they went to the Super Bowl, and more often than not, as Dylan portrayed in his video, the team that loses the Super Bowl often has a down year, and the way that the Atlanta Falcons lost that Super Bowl in such heartbreaking fashion has a lot to do with the psyche of a football team. It puts a lot of pressure on the leaders of the team. It puts a lot of pressure on their coach, Dan Quinn. It puts a lot of pressure on their MVP, Matt Ryan. And it puts a lot of pressure on overall all the people, including the offensive coordinator that's having to fill the shoes of the best offensive mind in football, in my opinion, and that's Kyle Shanahan, who is now the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. In my opinion, the Atlanta Falcons will miss Kyle Shanahan greatly. I think they'll miss his creativity. I think they'll miss his ability to create guys down the field that are open for his quarterback, Matt Ryan. Before Matt Ryan had Kyle Shanahan, he was a good quarterback, but he was never an MVP level quarterback, and I'm just concerned that Matt Ryan might have been a deviation from his career. That might have been a standout year for his career, and maybe he's just going to come back down to his average this season. You look across at this talent on offense, and yes, they have some very talented players like Devontae Freeman and Julio Jones, but really besides that, they have kind of a bunch of guys like that were had sparks here and there last season, but they were mostly a product of a scheme that was put out there from Kyle Shanahan. So, in my opinion, I think that the Atlanta Falcons offense is going to take a dip. You look at their record last year, it was 11-5 in the regular season, and they actually finished second in the NFC. I see them not winning as many shootouts this year, and that putting more pressure on their young defense. I actually do think that the Atlanta Falcons defense is going to be a little bit better this year. I think they have brought in some nice pieces to help this defense, specifically along the defensive line, like Dontari Poe. They have a decent pass rush. Hopefully Vic Beasley can replicate what he had last year. I like a couple of their other players in the secondary, and also at linebacker, but there's still a lot of question marks. This defense wasn't good really until moments in the playoffs, and we saw in the second half of the Super Bowl, they completely fell apart. So what is this Atlanta Falcons team going to show us this season? It's a huge question mark going into the NFL season, and I actually feel pretty strongly about this, that I don't think the Atlanta Falcons are going to win the NFC South or make the playoffs in 2017. Call me crazy, but that's just my opinion. My third bold prediction for the NFL season in 2017 is the Oakland Raiders. I think the Oakland Raiders will miss the playoffs. Yes, the Cowboys, the Falcons, the Raiders will all miss the playoffs in 2017. Again, call me crazy, but let me explain. The Oakland Raiders won multiple games that were just based off Derek Carr's ability, will, and just pure leadership. They won a lot of comeback games. They won a lot of games basically fluking them off, to be quite honest with you, and that was against a schedule that wasn't very strong. They actually only beat one playoff team, and it was against Brock Osweiler's Houston Texans in 2016. The Oakland Raiders need to have more success against good football teams this season because they're going to play more of them this season, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, and it's not because of the offense. I do believe in the offense. I think it's good. I think it's solid, and I think it's one of the top 10 units in the league. They have a very solid offensive line, although I think it might be a tad bit overrated coming into this season. Derek Carr, I've been a believer since day one. Great quarterback. I think he's one of the biggest uprising young quarterbacks in the game, and I think he's somewhere in the upper half of the top 10. You then look at the wide receivers and a great tandem in Cooper and Crabtree. So they have pieces on offense, and they're going to move the ball and they're going to score points. But for me, this defense just doesn't have what it takes to be a playoff team this year. They are not a good defense in really any regard outside of Khalil Mack and Bruce Irvin. They have a good tandem at outside linebacker, but besides that, their defensive line situation isn't the greatest. Their secondary situation is definitely pause for concern. So for me, the Oakland Raiders really took a step back this offseason. I don't see them really improving this year. The Oakland Raiders are not going to progress like a lot of people think they will. I think they're actually going to regress this season, but that doesn't mean that the Oakland Raiders don't have a bright future, because I think they do. They just need to do a couple of more things, and I think the Oakland Raiders will be where some people think they already are. I'm just pausing and I'm saying I don't think the Raiders are quite that team yet, especially with the AFC West being so strong this year, their schedule being strong, all this news about Vegas, and all this hype that they have and pressure. I just don't think the Raiders are going to be able to live up to it in 2017. The next team projection I have is that the Seattle Seahawks offense will statistically be better than their defense. Now, wow, that's kind of a bold prediction, right? The Seattle Seahawks defense has been their staple. It's been their identity for years now. It's been their identity since about 2012. And I think the Seattle Seahawks offense is actually going to be statistically ranked better in 2017. Now, that's not to say that the Seahawks defense won't be good, because I think it will be. But I actually believe strongly in the Seahawks offense. Yes, their offensive line isn't very good, but I've seen in this preseason, I've seen in the offseason a rejuvenated, a better, and what I think is going to be Russell Wilson's best year he's ever had in the NFL. Russell Wilson looks like a man possessed. He's lost some weight. He looks quicker. He looks faster. He looks healthy. which is very crucial, and he looks like he's going to have an MVP type season. That trickles down on everyone else. Jimmy Graham, I think, is one of the most talented tight ends in the league. He had a good year last year, another year in the system. I think he's going to have another good year this year. Doug Baldwin being paid the way he should, very good receiver. Now, a lot of people are going to point to the other targets around Jimmy Graham and Doug Baldwin. While I'm personally a big fan of CJ Prosise out of the backfield, who I think will give the Seahawks offense another dimension to their offense, a receiving running back that they've never really had. You also have a pretty solid running game, at least what I think will be better than last year. This offensive line, I think, will improve in that regard. You also add Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls to CJ Prosise, and I think that this offense will be able to run the ball more consistently than they did last year, opening it up for Russell Wilson to play action and all that the things he can do outside the pocket. Then you have Paul Richardson, who looks to be a physical monster and at times last year made ridiculous catch after ridiculous catch. This year, I think he's going to take a step forward. If Tyler Lockett can stay on the field, he can stretch defenses. So I think the Seahawks offense is actually going to be really, really good and the best it's ever been with Russell Wilson this year. And I'm going to go bold and say that it's actually better than the defense because I don't think the defense is quite the same it's been. I think their defensive line is really good, especially after the add of Sheldon Richardson. Their linebackers, they have two really good ones, concerned about the third one. Their secondary, though, specifically their corner spot, isn't my favorite. Specifically the second and third corner spot, I'm not a huge fan of. Richard Sherman is still great. Their safeties are still awesome, but I think that the Seahawks defense will be able to be passed upon, which I think will kind of lower them in the statistical categories. I'm going to say the Seahawks offense is better than the defense this year. The next bold prediction I have for the NFL season is that Odell Beckham will be recognized as the best wide receiver in the game by the end of 2017. Now, this might not be bold to a lot of people out there just because that they may look upon Odell Beckham as already the best receiver or at least already a top 3 wide receiver. But I still think that there are not enough people talking about how great Odell Beckham actually is. Odell Beckham, if you actually look up his Wikipedia and his records, it's going to take you like 20 minutes to read them all. That's how many he has. He's only played about, I think, three seasons now, and he has rewritten the record book. We haven't seen a receiver this consistent in the first 3 years of his career since Randy Moss, and we've never seen a receiver this consistent in his young career other than Randy Moss. I think Odell Beckham has all the abilities to become the best receiver in the league. I think he might already even be there. He has some of the best hands in the league. He is a great route runner with amazing finesse, amazing quickness, and he has the ability, unlike any player in the league, in my opinion, to break a basic route and take it all the way to the house. Whatever the Giants ask him to do, he can do, and he's been facing double teams, triple teams, quadruple coverage his entire career because he's never had any other receivers to take any recognition or coverage away from him. Now he has Brandon Marshall. They added Evan Ingram. They have Sterling Shepard. They have Shane Marine. They have all of these guys to take away attention from Odell Beckham. Now Odell Beckham's going to be in more single coverage, and he's going to really, really, really take advantage of it. Move over Julio. Move over Antonio Brown. It's going to be Odell Beckham's spot come the end of 2017. Then we have Dalvin Cook. That's my next projection. Dalvin Cook will outperform Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette in 2017. Yes, Dalvin Cook wasn't drafted till the second round of the 2017 NFL Draft. Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette were both selected ahead of Dalvin Cook, but that doesn't mean that Dalvin Cook's not going to have a better year. Even though I thought Leonard Fournette was the best running back coming into the draft, I see too many kind of deficiencies to this team that makes me believe that Fournette's going to have a monster year. Sure, he's going to carry the ball a lot, and he's going to get the ball a lot, but an offensive line that's really, really, really bad, a quarterback that's even worse, I don't see this offense having a lot of success, and I see defenses really trying their number one priority being, let's take away the run game, and let's take away Leonard Fournette, and let's make Blake Bortles throw the ball. Yes, the Jags want to run the ball, but that doesn't mean they're going to be successful doing it. Christian McCaffrey, sure, I could see it. I could see him being this dual threat guy. I could see Cam Newton and going back to his MVP form and forming a great connection with Christian McCaffrey, sure. But on the other hand, I see Dalvin Cook as a guy that I think is just more ready to be a pro football runner in the NFL. I see Christian McCaffrey as maybe having a little bit of a bump in the road when it comes to running the football. I also think that Christian McCaffrey has more competition to deal with. I still think the Panthers want to get Jonathan Stewart the ball, specifically around the goal line, which will hinder McCaffrey's statistics. And at the end of the day, I think Dalvin Cook is the feature back in Minnesota. Even though they gave some money to Latavius Murray, Dalvin Cook definitely took that job. He's an all-around dual-threat player. He's shown great explosiveness. He has amazing vision. And I just feel like Dalvin Cook is probably the odds-on favorite for me to win the Rookie of the Year in the NFL offensively. I think Dalvin Cook, if he does explode, could lead this Vikings team to the playoffs. And I think he could slightly outperform Christian McCaffrey and definitely outperform Leonard Fournette, as I don't think Fournette will have a good year. I think McCaffrey will still have a good year, specifically as a receiver, but I like Dalvin Cook's chances more on the ground. My next prediction in the 2017 NFL season is that Phillip Rivers will have the best season of his career and lead a healthy Chargers team to the playoffs. Yes, I said it. The Chargers are going to go to the playoffs in 2017, and it's going to be because of Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers has been one of my favorite players in the NFL for a few years now. I love his fiery passion. I love the way he plays football. I love the way he leads a team, and I love his just absolute passion for the game of football. And for me, Phillip Rivers has been one of the most underrated players in the NFL for his entire career. He's actually had multiple seasons where he's been looked at as an MVP or All-Pro player, and I think this year it's going to be one of those years. I look at this offense in San Diego/LA now, and I feel like Phillip Rivers is surrounded by the best group of talent he's been surrounded by in years, since the Chargers were good, to be honest with you. Phillip Rivers now has a top-tier running back in Melvin Gordon, who I also think is going to have a really good year. He has two dual-threat tight ends in Antonio Gates and Hunter Henry. He has multiple receivers. Keenan Allen is back healthy, which has a great rapport with Phillip Rivers. Mike Williams should be returning at some point in this season. Tyrell Williams, who he formed a rapport with last season, had 1,000 yards last year. You know, you also have multiple guys like Benjamin there as well. And they have so many different playmakers that Phillip Rivers can go to. Phillip Rivers looks rejuvenated in the preseason. He actually had, I think, more touchdowns in the preseason than he had incompletions. So Phillip Rivers looks pretty good this year. He does not look old whatsoever, and he looks to be leading the way for the San Diego Chargers. Now, I don't think I need much to explain to you that Phillip Rivers is a good player, but on the other hand, I need to explain why I think the Chargers are a good team. Now, I mostly explained to you why I think the offense will be good. I also need to add into the fact about their head coach, Anthony Lynn. I've said it multiple times, but I think the run game and the offense as a whole is going to benefit from Anthony Lynn's creativity when it comes to opening up the run game. Melvin Gordon, I think, is going to have a big year. I think this is going to add to the fact that Phillip Rivers is going to have a big year. I just see them controlling the ball better. I see them being a better offensive football team. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I just really like some of their players. Melvin Ingram signed a big contract. He's a really good pass rusher. Joey Bosa could be a sleepy and sneaky defensive player of the year this year. And then you go to the secondary, Casey Hayward and Jason Verrett. If they stay on the field, this is a really good corner tandem, a good secondary mixed with a good pass rush, mixed with an offense that can score points. That screams playoff team to me, and I actually think the Chargers are going to be dangerous this season. The next prediction I have for the 2017 NFL season, it's pretty bold. Jadeveon Clowney is going to have a better season than J.J. Watt. I think that the Houston Texans are going to be a good football team. I think that they're going to be a threat in the playoffs. I think they're going to make it to the playoffs, and I think it's going to be mostly on the backs of their defense, specifically on the backs of their dual threat pass rushing linebacker DN combo of Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt has been struggling with injuries, specifically this last season, missing pretty much the entire year last year. In his place, Jadeveon Clowney broke out to be an absolute monster force on the defensive side of the football. I think this season, Jadeveon Clowney is going to prove himself as a top 5 defensive player in the NFL alongside J.J. Watt, Von Miller, Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, those sort of guys. Jadeveon Clowney is in that conversation for me. He is great against the run, the way he sets the edge. He's explosive. I think he's going to have good sack numbers this year, which he didn't really have last year, but he was just so explosive last year. He'd disrupt every play. Turn on the tape, and just turn on the AFC divisional game against the Patriots. The guy was an absolute amazing force, killing guys in the backfield, beating up quarterbacks, getting by tackles. I think Jadeveon Clowney is going to be a force. Not to say that J.J. Watt is not going to have a good year, but I think, he's going to be back. He's going to be motivated. He's going to be good. But I think Clowney is it's his time to break out. And sometimes we see in sports with 2 great players at the same time, one guy will outperform the other at times. And I think it's Clowney's year to really take it to Watt. And I think there's going to be a healthy competition there in Houston this year. And I think if you're a Houston Texans fan, you're going to be excited about this defense and this team this year. Next, prediction. Although I think the Texans are going to be good, although I think the Chargers are going to be good, although I think multiple other teams in the AFC will be good, I think the AFC Championship is going to actually be a repeat of last year. And for a long time, I didn't have the Steelers in the AFC Championship, but of recent events, their addition of Joe Hayden, which I don't think is that great, but I think it's a good add, and I think it will help them. Just watching their defense in the preseason, watching their team as a whole, Martavis Bryant being reinstated, Le'Veon Bell coming back to training camp, I think that the Steelers are going to be capable of reaching the AFC Championship once again this year as they did last year. I think Martavis Bryant just really adds a different dimension to this offense. Because now defenses are going to be stressed out. They can't now double team Antonio Brown every single play because they have to worry about the deep ball to Martavis Bryant. Then they have Le'Veon Bell to deal with on the ground game, and we know how good he is. The offensive line is very good. They have multiple other weapons at 3rd, 4th, 5th receiver, tight end. They added a decent backup running back in James Conner. The defense, I think, is pretty good. TJ Watt looks pretty good. I'm not going to say that they're a good unit, but I think they're decent overall, and I think their offense is enough really to get by some of the other contenders in the AFC. You look at some of the other contenders, there's a lot of questions about Houston when it comes to their offense, their quarterback play. The Titans are an up-and-coming team, but I just don't see it quite yet, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. The Raiders, as I said, I don't think have the magic this year. The Chiefs, I just don't see them getting by the Steelers with Alex Smith. The Denver Broncos, don't see them, doing what they're doing with that quarterback situation. The San Diego Chargers, LA Chargers, like I said earlier, I think they're going to be good. I think they'll make the playoffs, but that might be a little bit of a stretch to make the AFC Championship. So I think the Steelers are going to be, that team that gets back there. And I don't think I really need to say much about the Patriots. They're the Patriots. They pretty much get there every single year and have since 2010. And this looks like the best team that they've had since 2010. So I don't have to say much about that. And the last prediction, bold prediction for the 2017 NFL season, is that Tom Brady will be the first player to win MVP and the Super Bowl since Kurt Warner in 1999. It's actually kind of rare. A lot of players that have won the MVP have not also won the Super Bowl. I think this year that will change, and it will be to a 40-year-old quarterback named Tom Brady. I look at this Patriots team, it's just too good. I look at this offense, it's nasty. I look at this defense, it's very good. And I think Tom Brady is just the catalyst of that. And if this team, again, goes 14-2 or better, Tom Brady is definitely going to be the MVP. He arguably was the MVP of last year, especially after what he did in the playoffs. So Tom Brady, I think there's not much to really describe about this guy. He's the greatest quarterback of all time, for most people at least. This team looks like the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. Tom Brady's in one of the best offenses in the league. They're going to score a lot of points. He's going to throw a lot of touchdowns. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. Adding Brandon Cooks was huge. Yes, Julian Edelman, went down, and that kind of sucks. But this offense is so good. He actually has an offensive line that has some chemistry. And I just think Tom Brady's going to win the MVP. And I also think the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl. So for me, I think this is going to be the first time since 1999 that the guy that wins the MVP also wins the Super Bowl. So, yeah, in 2017, Tom Brady is going to win the MVP and the Super Bowl, and maybe even the Super Bowl MVP. But I actually think that might go to a different player. And to find out who that goes to, make sure you tune into the next NFL video on this channel, which will be the predictions for the full entire NFL season. We've done division previews. If you haven't checked that out, check those out. But we're going to do full NFL predictions, including the teams we think will make the playoffs, how the playoffs will shake out, who will win the NFL awards, and who will win the Super Bowl and represent each conference. Thanks, guys, for joining me here on The Bottom Line View. It's Mitch of The Bottom Line View. Hope you guys enjoyed my 10 bold predictions for the NFL season in 2017. Let me know your bold prediction, or if you agree or disagree with my predictions. I know that this is going to be a very controversial topic and video, so I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Thanks for joining me. Like the video, subscribe. Peace out.